Kids, this is my vlog for April 19th, 2011. How are you? Um, on my Facebook page today, I posted this really cool idea for mixing pasta and hot dogs. And I thought it was really neat. And I found it on my page today and I reposted it. Somebody else had it posted and I reposted it and it got my wheels spinning. Um, and I want to give you some feedback on this particular thing. Um, you slice up a hot dog and then you stick either spaghetti or linguine or something through the hot dog and then cook it, like boil it. And it comes out really cool and it looks neat. Now, it harkened back to a moment though, because my mind started running so quickly. I had to go take a nap before I and calm down from all the excitement of posting that, so I could clear my head, so I could make my culinary delight. And so I did. I took a short nap and I got up and got to work. Fortunately, I had all the ingredients, and I thought to myself, I was inspired by a couple of things, and this is what they were. First of all, I was inspired by Anne Romney, because we all know that rich women that stay at home and take care of kids is a very hard job. Bossing the maid around and making sure that you get them to cotillion on time and all that other stuff. So, yeah. And so this is my ode to Anne Romney, first of all. And second of all, everybody that knows me really, really well knows that I have been an aviation nerd forever, since like I was one. I have a large airplane collection. I often haunt airliners.net online. I look at airplane photos. I watch videos on YouTube of people flying in airplanes, first class, business class, coach, old commercials, and everything to do with airlines. So it's been one of my hobbies and fascinations forever. And back in the old days, airlines used to go out of their way to serve very, by today's standards, extravagant meals, even in economy class, compared to what they even offer today in first. In first class today, particularly on a domestic flight, you're lucky to get a sandwich or a salad for your $1,000 plus ticket. And even if you spend $15,000 on a business class or first class ticket on an international flight, still, in many cases, the food just, how can you make a chicken breast worth $15,000 no matter what kind of sauce you put on it? Let's be honest. So, I wanted to do a food that looked like something they'd serve in first class today. Something that looked snappy and was probably kind of tasty, but yet dirt cheap. So, with this inspiration, with Anne Romney in mind and airline service in mind, I went about my adventure cooking. And my adventure started with how thick I should slice the hot dogs. Now, at the end of the hot dogs, on each end, there's like this thing that looks like an anus, a really tight virgin anus, like the day before you went to the disco for the first time. I decided that those were unsightly, and I fed those to my dogs, who were very happy to be right on hand to get those pieces each and every time. So if you have dogs or even cats, it's good to take those little unsightly anus-looking ends off if you want it to look like Haute Cuisine. So I cut them up and I did some experiments with thinner slices and thicker slices. So I got to like this medium kind of perfect slice, and I decided that spaghetti was a little bit too thin for my big rugged paws, so I got linguine, and it's a little bit thicker and more durable. And I could shove 4 to 6 pieces of pasta through the hot dog, which both looked appetizing and didn't look too busy. So I settled on between 4 and 6, depending on how they went through. Now, the other thing I learned quickly about this meal is that logistically, you have to push the pasta through the hot dog, but only so much. In other words, if the pasta is this long, you want one end of the pasta this long, and then the hot dog and the rest over on this side. And there's a reason for that. First of all, when you take it and put it in the pot to boil, it's easier to put it in that way. And the weight of the hot dog on the short side will help push it down under the water so it all cooks. Secondly, when you do that, it's easier to stack them up on a plate because this is a time-consuming process. It's kind of like crafts when you were in preschool. It's fun. I mean, you can sit and do it all day. And if you took what the actual recipe was and how much time it took me to produce this, I could normally microwave a hot dog in like 30 seconds to a minute, and I can zap up some sauce, let's say, in another minute. And while I'm doing those 2 zappings, I can chop up some onions. So I took what could be a 5-minute meal and I turned it into an almost 3-hour extravaganza, which is why housewives are so busy. Because you can do things like this. You can take a 5-minute meal and turn it into a 3-hour adventure. That's a lot of work. And bravo for those housewives that do that. My mother would have never conceived of something like this, nor even entertained the idea. So anyway, so I wanted to get it out of the thing. I didn't want to pour it in the colander and maybe, the strainer thing, and maybe ruin it. So I took my big slotted spoon, and everybody knows I love slotted spoons, and I pulled some out individually and I plated it like it was a first class meal. And I actually used dishes from first class. And I plated it, and then I decided it needed some je ne sais quoi. So I warmed up some manwich sauce, because that's always tasty. Everybody likes manwich. And I took and I decorated the plate with like a swash of cream cheese, not cream cheese, sour cream, and just in case the manwich is too spicy for you. And then I did a little bit of sprinkling of Parmesan, and then I took some multiple colored cheese shavings, and I made a little pile in one corner, and then I took some finely chopped, like you do for like caviar, onions, and I put that in a little pile so that you could add if you wanted to. And it looked dashing, and it actually tasted good. And then thinking back on some of the videos I've watched recently of people in first class lounges and airports and flying first class, this could easily have been sold to a first class passenger if you entertained it right and made it all haute. So, and besides, it was good, and it was fun to make and not hard. So you just boil the pasta like it says on the package, and by the time it's done, it's done. It's great. What's not to love? And if you pick it up with your fork by the piece of hot dog, you can easily twirl it around your fork and eat it without making a big mess. So that's my deal on that. Now, let's go on to some other things. Now, as you all know, I have to write a lot of stuff down because I forget. And I've decided that these videos sometimes are a good way for me to remember things. So I have some things that I wrote down, and I've tried to keep in my mind all day because I wanted to share them with you. So it's like recent news and stuff like that. So when I woke up, first of all, when I woke up from my nap, as I got ready to make my Haute Cuisine, I heard this horrible grinding, snapping sound. It was frightening. It was like a railroad train coming through, like a train. And the only thing I can remember that sounded like that was an earthquake. And when I looked from my bed, I looked down the hallway. I have, most of my house is tile. the majority of the house is a ceramic tile. My bathrooms are marble, and the rooms that were bedrooms in the house traditionally had carpeting when I bought the house, and I immediately ripped it up. I immediately ripped it up and threw it out before I even moved the furniture in. It was gone because I'm allergic to carpet. I can't stand it. So they have the original terrazzo floors from like the 1950s or 60s or whenever this house was built, really long time ago. So the optical, first of all, I had the audio hallucination of this movement, and then it looked like visually like the terrazzo was moving under the tile, kind of like two tectonic plates, and that was what was making the cracking and snapping sound. Now this is, besides absolutely nuts, it does have some logic, because I live in an area of the country that is notorious for sinkholes. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that that could happen. So for a moment, I was actually in the reality that my house was actually moving that way. However, strangely, I felt no movement on my bed at all. No shaking, no moving out towards the hallway or anything like that. And this hallucination lasted a good 15 seconds, and it was high def. And I was just waiting for the roof to collapse or the floor to split or to drop down 50 feet or something. And nothing happened. And then when I got up to look, the floor was exactly the way it was when I went to bed. So, yeah, kind of a grand mal of a hallucination today. That was kind of fun. My life's always an adventure. So, I mean, what can you say? Now, Sunday, I got two kind of topics that are all kind of related. Sunday, Speaker Boner refused to endorse Mitt Romney. And then suddenly, Monday morning, he comes back and endorses Mitt Romney, but very tepidly. He used some of Romney's actual lines from his campaign, and he gave this really lame excuse that made no sense at all, why he didn't endorse him, to endorse him, even though it contradicted the reason why he didn't do it in the first place. So on the logic front, it was absolutely funny as hell, because it was so fake. I could barely, like, my mouth was wet. Now, if that wasn't enough, Speaker Boner comes back on Tuesday and says to the country that Barack Obama is playing boogeyman politics. And not 45 minutes later, after that press conference, the good folks of Indiana started opening up their mailboxes to find this letter from Rick Santorum, which states, and I quote, "Be afraid of Mitt Romney." He's like, the worst choice for candidate, blah, blah. He's scary, he's unpredictable, whatever. Boogeyman politics. Now, we all know the right has, and I have to give them kudos, they are the best at boogeyman politics. I mean, they have done nothing for the last 4 years besides talk a lot of boogeyman stuff. And they've got nothing done. Nothing. They just stopped the whole government practically from functioning. But it was too funny that on the same day they went and pointed the finger, it blew up right in their face. You just have to appreciate that for what it is. Seriously. My whole view on this is a little less politics, a little more let's get something useful done. That would be nice. Because we're not always going to agree on anything. But we can compromise and get something useful done. I'm sure we used to be able to, at least. I don't know if we've gone to the point of no return or not. We'll see. Now, the other thing I love, and this one jumps into the other thing which people don't like to talk about, which is religion. recently in the news, and again, I use Yahoo News. I mean, I don't go to Fox or MSN. I don't have TV in my house anymore at all. I only get my entertainment and my news online, and usually from major news sources that are not partisan. And Yahoo News has no agenda. They just want everybody to have a Yahoo email account and watch their advertisements. They really don't care. So I always find them the best source for news because they carry everybody's news. They carry all the right, all the left, all the medium, and everybody that doesn't care in between. So there's been a series of articles out there recently about the Catholic Church. And let me say this. Everybody knows, and if you don't, I'm full disclosure, I am no fan of any organized religion at all. Any type, any place, anywhere in the history of man. I think they're absolutely appalling. My personal view. So that being said, I do, however, think that people have the right to do whatever they want and believe whatever they want, as long as they don't try to inflict it on me and shove it down my throat. I don't shove my non-religion down your throat. I don't expect your religion shoved down my throat at all. So it was disturbing to me because the Catholic Church in America, at least, has, over my lifetime, been very good at staying out of major politics, or politics in general. Now, in other regions of the world, like Central and South America, where the dominant religion for most of the people in the country is Catholic, they tend to have a lot of say in the politics of the country. And as we all know, many of those countries are very backwards and have never really developed to their full potential. And you can say maybe it's partly due to the Catholic Church and maybe it's not, but their track record as far as actual boots on the ground isn't that great at all, really. Most of the countries that they dominate are third world countries. And we're becoming one of those. But what's disturbing is the Catholic Church has now made statements in writing that they want to get into politics in this country in a big way. And they're going to put money and time and effort behind these. And they're going to push the priests to speak about politics from the pulpit, which is a dangerous game. Now, I know where it's coming from, because as Pope Ratzinger has pushed the Catholic Church hard to the right, and some Protestant denominations have moved to the left and are trying to modernize, a lot of the people that cannot deal with that modernization have jumped ship. Protestants have jumped ship over to this Catholic Church, which offers this nice, scary fire and brimstone opportunity for them. So they feel comfortable there. And good for them, because most of the moderate and liberal Catholics have been fleeing the church in record numbers. And in some cases, it's gotten so bad they're fleeing Christianity altogether because of the hypocrisy. But that aside, the Catholic Church has decided that they want to wage pretty much political war with their church and their beliefs, which is numbing. Now, I personally will have none of them shoving their you can be Catholic and that's cool, but don't shove your Catholicism down my throat, because I don't want it. Don't need it at all. Thank you. Have a nice day. I have seen the very worst of the Catholic Church, and frankly, no forgiveness. Sorry. Don't buy any of it myself, personally. Again, my choice. The idea that they're getting involved now is interesting, because since a lot of the evangelical Christians and a lot of these hard right-wing Christians have been jumping ship over to Catholicism, they were used to being very involved in politics for the last couple of decades. So now this new flock is obviously pushing the Catholic Church even farther into activism, because it worked for them as Protestants, so why not work like that for Catholics? And it's perfectly acceptable for Pope Ratzinger to do that. So disturbing to watch, but keep your eye out. The latest evolution of that was apparently now, and this is another sign of politics. This is weird. They're attacking Jon Stewart for making a joke about vagina managers and saying how, oh my God, it's offensive to all of religion everywhere. And they're calling on Protestants and Mormons and every religion basically on earth to boycott Jon Stewart and The Daily Show and anybody that would dare advertise with them. I find that, first of all, a huge overreaction. And second of all, if you actually look at the tape of what he said, and in the context in which he said it, he was absolutely correct. And if they can't deal with the facts of what they're actually offering the American people, then they need to look at themselves and their policies. For example, in Wisconsin recently, they took away equal pay, the law that says men and women should be paid equally for work. They took it away. The Republican governor and controlled legislature took it away, and the guy that wrote the bill said it's because it's men find money more important than women do. No joke. Not kidding. And the Catholic Church, a couple of other little Catholic Church stories with women. Recently, they fired a nun because she told on a priest that was like hoarding porno or something, and so mysteriously they fired her and got rid of her. And just the other day, they decided they were going to raid the nun group or whatever, and start firing them and tormenting them for whatever reason. I guess the nuns have got out of control or whatever, which I find really hard to believe. But yeah, what's going on there? And how is that really good for women? I can understand. And the funny thing is, with most religions, what you find is that the most faithful of the flock are always females. They're the ones that show up every day to Mass, or at least every week or whatever, and they're the most active, even more so than their husbands usually. And that's also in Protestant religions. And they vote basically against their own interests and want to turn over this paternal domination that used to be back in the day. And everything that women have fought for their whole lives, like the right to vote, etc., etc., these people would happily roll back in an instant if they could win an election without a woman's vote. So don't think for a second that they wouldn't, because given the chance, look in Wisconsin, they will. They'll snatch every right you ever fought for. So keep it in mind. I just thought it was kind of ironic to be watching that. And last but not least, what's up with all these earthquakes? Major earthquakes all around the world, like one a day practically, and sometimes two a day. It's getting pretty crazy. So that's my deal. A little bit long video, but I don't do them often anymore, so suffer through it. Talk to you later.